say you the fastest. I wonder what that brute tastes like. I hope it was water, Tyreek Hill. Man, I love you, but man, are you really faster than the whole National Football League?
It's great to be back. It's Roman Kress here, also known as Romy Rome. I'm here to talk about Randy Moss and Tyreek Hill. On a post that was recently, actually a statement that was recently said by Randy Moss, and it caught my attention.
I don't even think you're faster than me, my man. Come on, man. Hold on.
Randy.
Hold on. He got something to say.
As you remember, last time we talked about LeBron versus Jordan. I pretty much nipped that in the bud, and I didn't even have to give any data. I didn't have to go into analytics because it was pretty set in stone. It's a pretty easy argument, if you ask me. And this one's, in my opinion, is even easier. So it just takes a little bit of logic, guys. For you human beings out there, it just takes a little bit of logic, a little bit of common sense to know that these are pretty easy arguments to make definitive answers off of. And I'm going to give you that answer today. So I want to read off this quote that I seen that caught my attention on Facebook. And Randy Moss said in the quote, he said,
Yes, Tyreek Hill is in any race. In my prime, I would have lit Tyreek up.
In my prime, I would have lit Tyreek Hill up. That's what he said. He would have lit Tyreek Hill up. I want you guys to think about that. If you guys are knowledgeable about football, seen Tyreek Hill play, you know this guy is dynamite on the football field. There's no one in the NFL that is as fast as Tyreek Hill. Hands down, fastest today. But Randy Moss said back in his time, 15 years ago or so, 10 years ago, he would have lit Tyreek Hill up. Well, let's expound on that. Is that true? Is that a true statement? Well, we know that Randy Moss ran a 4.25 handheld time. Keep in mind handheld time. I'm going to explain the difference between handheld and automatic. There's a big difference. He ran a 4.25 handheld time at the NFL Combine, right? On his pro day training. Tyreek Hill, to juxtapose that time, ran 4.29 automatic. So when you have a handheld time, a manual time, stopwatch, person's hand, you have to deal with reaction time, right? When you start it, when you stop it. That's usually about 2/10. So you could take that 4.25 that Randy Moss so eloquently ran, and you can make that a 4.45. Sorry to say it, Randy Moss, you ran a 4.45. So that's how you do it in terms of how you dictate speed. Now, if you're not familiar with myself, I qualified for the Olympics in the year 2000. Actually, 1999, I ran Olympic qualifying standard time at the age of 21 years old. And I've always been fast. And I'm going to get into these arguments of what some of the people were saying on Facebook in terms of like game speed fast or tracks. He's just track speed fast. We're going to talk all about that real quick. I'm going to explain there. There's no difference between track speed and football speed. It's the same thing. You're fast on grass, you're fast on the track, you're fast on cement, you're fast on asphalt. Doesn't matter. Back in my prime, I would burn anybody. It doesn't matter what type of surface you put me on. So there's no such thing as, oh, he's just fast on the football field. When you're fast, right? It's that simple. So we're going to get into these arguments. We're going to get into these discussions that were put on Facebook. And like me, unknowingly, I don't really know much about Facebook, but that's not really my platform. I usually operate on Instagram. It's not really personal. You just put out images, you maybe make a comment, and that's pretty much all there is to it. But Facebook's a lot more intimate. People are really emotional, and people are very opinionated on Facebook. And everybody has all the answers. Everybody thinks they know it all, right? You guys know who you are, because you guys have all the answers. But it's not backed up with data. It's not backed up with facts. So that's what we're going to get into. So the first fact I put out there was Randy Moss ran a 4.25 on his pro day, right? Handheld. So that's the equivalent of a 4.45 automatic time. For anybody that's ran track or anybody knows anything about timing, that's a 4.45. Not that great, right? Tyreek Hill ran 4.29 automatic. So the first segment we got in terms of differentiating the speed, Tyreek Hill is exponentially faster. 4.29 automatic to a 4.45. And I'll be nice to Randy Moss. I'll give him a 4.4 flat, right? I'll minus that 0.05. Still getting burnt. That's I mean, we're talking about a huge difference in speed, right? But it gets better yet because when they ran Tyreek Hill ran a 60-meter at Oklahoma State. He didn't compete in college track as well as Randy Moss when he was at Marshall. They both didn't compete collegiately, but they ran a couple races here and there. Now, Randy Moss's last time we see, besides that 40-yard dash, was a 100-meter time he ran when he was a sophomore in high school. Okay, we don't need to count that, but it does need to be documented. He ran a 10.8 in 100 meters. Okay, that's great as a sophomore. It's pretty good as a sophomore. It's pretty fast. But we never got to see him develop. We don't know how much faster he would have been. So that's what's going on Facebook, the Facebook world. Everybody's talking about, well, he could have ran this, he could have ran that. When you deal with track athletes and you deal with speed technicians, you have to deal with data. For an example, I'll give you an example of my career. When there was a guy named Star Roberts, a good friend of mine, even to this day. At one point, he was opposition to me on the track. He was very fast. He came out of California, and he was recruited to Morehead State, obscure place in northern Minnesota. I was at the University of St. Thomas. All my times are documented if you want to see him. Star Roberts did strike a little fear in me because I know he was fast, but I didn't know how fast he was until I seen the times. So when we had an argument over the phone that was initiated by another friend that was at Morehead State, a mutual friend of ours, he said, hey, I got this guy named, he was telling Star, I have this friend down in Minneapolis that he's faster than you. And Star said, no way, there's nobody faster than me. I'm from California. I'll burn anybody up here. So I got on the phone. We got on the phone, discussed. We started talking. And as we talked, all we did was put our times down. What can be documented? What can be verified is the key word. And that argument was a quick argument because as he put his fastest time down, which I think it was a 6:31 at that time, and mine was a 6.20, the conversation was over, right? And what it came out to be is, yes, I'm faster than him in the shorter distances, but Star was faster than me in the longer distances. These are not points of contention where people argue about theoretically who's faster. You put the times down and the conversation's ended. So Star and I came to the realization, yes, I'm faster than him in the shorter distances. He's faster than me in the longer sprint distances. Argument was over. That's the same thing that happens here that people on Facebook don't seem to understand. They're based on a lot of theoretics. Oh, he looked fast. Well, everybody feels fast and looks fast when they run by themselves or they're running with someone slower, right? So me, like I said, everything's verified, everything's documented, right? So with that being said, like I said, Randy Moss ran a 100-meter time. 10.8 as a sophomore in high school, which is good as a sophomore in high school. It's a great time. But we don't know how fast he would have developed. So we're throwing all the theoretics out the window, all the hypotheticals mean nothing, okay? Unless you ran the time. Tyreek Hill ran, I want to say a 10.19, I believe it was. It might have been a 10.0, might have been a 10.09, which is, I mean, it's a whole different stratosphere of speed than what Randy Moss has ran, okay? Then you go into the 200. That's where it even gets even worse because Randy Moss does have a documented time collegiately of running at 200 meters, and he ran 21.1. Just a little bit faster than me, right? And I'm not even a 200-meter runner. I'm a 40-yard, 55, 60-meter sprinter. He ran 21.1. That's a good time, right? It's good for collegiate. I mean, if you're Division III or something, but for a Division I athlete, absolutely not. Tyreek Hill ran, I believe, a wind-dated 19.9. And a 20.09. Totally different stratosphere. Pretty much a whole second and a half faster than him. So pretty much he would have got beat by 15 meters on the track. Not a competition, right? This is the one that these people are heralding as being the fastest man in NFL or all time, Randy Moss, which he's not. And it's quite evident and easily to prove. And any track runners know that when you argue about speed, all you do is bring up times. Then the times have to be documented and verified. Once those times are documented and verified, the conversation is over. There's no need for discussion. And that's what I thought was going to happen on Facebook, but that didn't happen. I just got ridiculed and lambasted. People just went in on me. Like I didn't know what the heck I was talking about. There was a couple people on there with a little bit of sense, but obviously they probably ran track in the past. But one of the biggest arguments that continuously came up is, We're talking game speed. What the heck is game speed? Please explain that to me. Because when I'm watching Tyreek Hill, I'm seeing him burning past his own teammates when they're like 10, 15 yards ahead with the ball, about to score a touchdown, and he runs up behind them and runs past them to the end zone. What's game speed? Please explain that one person to me. What is game speed? Because game speed to me is getting wide open all the time, which Randy Moss was able to do. But then again, who was he running against? I'm not saying he wasn't running against fast people, but the question you have to ask, based on the times I just said, we already know Tyreek Hill's faster on paper, right? But who's faster in the game is the question. Well, obviously the person that ran a faster time is obviously going to be faster on the field, right? What's the difference? When you're fast on grass, you're fast on a synthetic surface. There's no difference. You're fast all the time. When I played football, there was no one even close to me even be able to compete with me on the field. When I went out for a fly, I was always open because nobody had the speed to keep up with me. Now, would I catch the ball? That's a whole different discussion, right? But we're talking about speed here, man. So when we're talking about speed, we're talking about Tyreek Hill, we're talking about Randy Moss, we're talking about who can get from point A to point B the fastest. Obviously, it's Tyreek Hill. So I don't even know why this was a point of contention or why it rubbed so many people the wrong way. We got a bunch of people that like to stroke the ego of Randy Moss. He was a fast guy. We all know that. He was 6'4". Oh, that's another thing they brought up. They said, oh, he had longer legs. It doesn't matter if you have long legs or short legs. The fastest person in the world is 5'8" right now. His name is Christian Coleman. He has the world record at 6.34 in a 60-meter dash, which is obscenely fast. You put him on the football field, it's going to be even worse when he's running into all these slow football players. Yeah, you football players are pretty slow. So I'm just being honest with you. Track sprinters are just in a whole different level of speed. Right? Sometimes you get some crossover guys like Tyreek Hill or Randy Moss. I'll afford you that. Randy Moss has good speed, right? But was he faster than Deion Sanders? Let me ask you the question. Because they asked game speed, and I just put one comment when the guy said game speed. I said, please explain to me the game speed of Randy Moss when he was in his prime, when he went head-to-head with Dale Green. Oh, you guys forgot about that, huh? Dale Green, fastest player in the NFL. Every year they ran the 40-yard dash. During the Pro Bowl, he won every single year. He was still clocked at a 4.3 automatic time in his 40s. You guys forgot about Dale Green already? You forgot when he locked up Randy Moss at the Metrodome? When Randy Moss had no long touchdowns? Because he couldn't break free. Come on, peoples. He couldn't break free. He couldn't get open. Because Dale Green was that fast. And Dale Green was only 5'9". He might have been 5'8". Be honest with you. He couldn't get free. He couldn't get open. Because Dale Green ran crazy fast times when he ran collegiately. He ran like a 10-100, if not a 10-09. I get him confused. I don't have the data in front of me. But Dale Green is he may be the fastest player in the NFL history. Then you got Deion Sanders that ran a 4.2 automatic time in his sneakers at the combine, in plain clothes, walked off a limousine in Indianapolis, RCA Dome. Ran the 40, ran back out and went to his limo and left. 4.2, automatic. That's real speed right there. Deion Sanders had real speed, even though he never really competed collegiately. But that 40 verifies it right there. Randy Moss, you want to be in discussion and talk about speed, you need to have run the times, which you did it. Now, could you have been that fast? Possibly. I'm not going to say you weren't, but you did it. So the discussion's over. And we don't need to talk about it anymore. Just like when I said last week or last time we talked about LeBron Jordan. We can sit here and talk about the data all day, the stats, even though Jordan still has them in stats. But I didn't even want to go there because the stats is still easy to prove. I want to keep it based on logic. Who was the better player? Jordan didn't run to another team and try to create a championship team. He stayed put. You could say it's because of free agency is different now and then. Doesn't matter. He stayed. He played the game. He won chips, he took his L's, but he never switched. He stayed there through the thick and thin, like a rough marriage. He stayed committed to that relationship with the Chicago Bulls and won. LeBron, on the other hand, sorry guys, got outplayed by Jason Terry and lost when they were supposed to win 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 championships. I don't know how many championships they were supposed to win. Both those championships they won with Miami Heat come with asterisks, right? Shortened NBA season. Come on. So we don't know. We're not going to go there anymore, but I'm just going to say, oh yeah, Jordan doesn't quit either. But Tyreek Hill's faster than Randy Moss, and he'll always be faster. And in my opinion, Randy Moss is not even the top 5 NFL fastest guys based on the times. You got Dale Green, you got Deion Sanders, you got Tyreek Hill. There's other guys too that are not as good football players that are just as fast that ran some 4.1s and 4.2s as well. There's probably 10 guys. There might be 30 guys under a 4.4 in NFL history. So when you're talking about Randy Moss, please, guys, he was good for his size. He was good for his speed. He had great hands. He was an explosive football player. He was a great, phenomenal football player, one of the greatest. I don't take that away from him. But in terms of speed, Tyreek Hill's your man. What am I going to talk about next week? Next time? Well, I got more controversial topics. Today's athlete versus yesterday's athlete, right? The argument today that people like this, there's another thing on Facebook going around. The athletes today are better than the athletes of the past. I'll tell you right now, they weren't. Okay? They weren't. And I can easily prove that to you. Athletes today are great. Don't get me wrong. We got technology, we got diet, we got a lot of different things working in their favor. But I want you to think about this. What came first, the chicken or the egg? Man's a copy of 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 its original. So what's better, the original or thousands and thousands of years later? You guys know how it is. You've made copies on a printer. The ink starts to wear out, doesn't it? Didn't think about that, did you? When you make a copy of a copy of a copy, the original copy is always going to be superior than the latter copy. That's why you continue making copies on a machine, like a printer. It starts to fade away. The DNA is not as strong as it once was. So which athletes, how do you assess that? Obviously, we haven't been able to assess talent in analytics. You could pretty much strongly assess it within the last 20 years of data, statistic keeping. But how do you assess data from the days of old when they weren't playing these types of sports? How do you assess their athleticism? Right? How fast were they really running? How fast was the original man, the prototype of humanity, which I like to call Adam? How fast was he? How strong was he? How agile was he? I want you to think about that, because I have a very strong argument next time. Tune in, SLS Podcast. We're here to stay.